Hello, welcome to another video on our channel. Here, we translate testimonies of people who have had near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences. Today, we will learn about the story of Margaret von Stein. She tells that died, saw past lives, and revealed secrets. August 2024 will transform humanity. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Leave a comment with your name and your city. Let's now listen to Margaret's testimony. Hey guys, my name is Margaret von Stein, but you can call me Maggie. I'm 42 years old and I'm a cardiologist in Munich, Germany. I have worked at Munich University Hospital for over 15 years and love what I do. I've always been a very rational person, you know. He only believed in what he could see and touch. Religion, no way. Spirituality, it wasn't my style. I was that straight-laced doctor who only trusted science and verifiable facts. But all that changed on March 17th, 2020. That's when I had an experience that turned my life upside down. I know what I'm about to say may sound crazy, but I swear it really happened. It was a near-death experience that made me question everything I believed in. At that time, we were at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The hospitals were full. We worked non-stop. I barely slept properly. I lived on coffee and fast food. The stress was so much that I didn't even realize how worn out I was. I never imagined that something like this could happen to me. I mean, I was the doctor, the person who took care of others. I wasn't the one who was supposed to go through a near-death experience, right? But happened, and it completely changed my outlook on life, death, and everything in between. What I'm going to tell you is very different from anything I've ever experienced. It's a story about leaving your body, traveling through unknown dimensions, and even receiving a prophecy about the future. I know it sounds like something from a movie, but it was real. So real that I still get chills just remembering it. So, get ready. The story I'm going to tell is not for everyone. It challenges everything we have learned about reality. But if you keep an open mind, who knows, maybe you'll learn something new. After all, that's what happened to me. I, the skeptical doctor, had to rethink everything I thought I knew about life and death. Well, let's go. It was Tuesday morning, March 17th, 2020. I woke up early, as always. I remember looking at the clock and it was 5:30 in the morning. It was freezing cold in Munich, typical of the end of winter. I got up a little dizzy, you know. I thought it was just tiredness. After all, I had barely slept in the last few weeks because of the pandemic. I went to the bathroom to do my morning routine. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and that sort of thing. Everything was normal until then, but when I went to leave the bathroom, I felt very dizzy. I thought, wow, I need to eat something. I took a step outside, and then, bam. Everything went black. When I woke up, the first thing I thought was, what the hell, I'm going to be late for work. But then I realized that something was very wrong. I was standing, looking at the bathroom floor, and there, lying on the cold floor, that's right. I was seeing my own body passed out on the floor. I was in shock, you know. Like, what do you mean? I'm standing here, but am I also there on the ground? It didn't make any sense. I tried to pinch myself to see if I was dreaming, but my hand went through my arm. That's when the panic really hit. I tried to scream for help, but no sound came out. I tried to grab my cell phone from the sink, but my hand was going through everything. It was like I was a ghost or something. I could see and hear everything, but I couldn't touch anything. I stood there, looking at my body, not knowing what to do. Had I died? But if I had died, how could I still think and see things? Nothing made sense. I, a doctor who has always trusted science, was experiencing something that defied everything I knew. It was at that moment that I realized, this must be what they call an out-of-body experience. I had already read about this in some scientific articles, but I always thought it was bullshit. And now, I was living one. While I was there, trying to understand what was happening, I felt a force pulling me up. It was as if someone had pressed the button on an invisible elevator, I started climbing, crossing the bathroom ceiling as if it didn't exist. I passed my bedroom, the living room, and suddenly I was floating on the roof of my house. You could see all of Munich down there. The streets are empty because of the pandemic. Some lights are on in the windows. It was beautiful and scary at the same time. But the climb didn't stop there. I continued climbing, faster and faster. The clouds passed me like cotton. Soon, I could no longer see the city. I only saw the sky getting darker and darker. I thought I was going to end up in space, like seeing the Earth below, like an astronaut. But not. Suddenly, everything went dark. And when I say dark, I mean dark. I couldn't see anything. It was as if I had plunged into a bottomless pit. Then, out of nowhere, I started to fall. But it wasn't a normal fall. It was like I was being sucked down a giant drain. It went around and around, faster and faster. Fear took over me. I thought, that's it. I'm going to die for real now. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I tried to grab onto something, but there was nothing there. Just darkness and this feeling of infinite falling. I can't say how long it lasted. It could have been seconds or hours. I completely lost track of time. And then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. Suddenly, I was in a different place. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't light either. It was as if I were inside a colorful cloud. Colors I had never seen before moved around me. I felt enormous peace. All the fear I had felt during the fall disappeared. It was as if I had arrived home after a long journey. I felt welcomed, protected. That's when I realized, this must be the light at the end of the tunnel that people talk about when they have near-death experiences. While I was there, enjoying that feeling of peace, I heard a voice. It wasn't a normal voice, and it was as if it was coming from all sides at once. And the crazy thing is that I didn't hear it with my ears. It was as if the voice was inside my head. The voice said, "Welcome, Margaret. We have been waiting for you." I looked around and saw a figure forming in front of me. He was a young man. He must have been around 30 years old. He had a gentle smile and eyes that seemed to shine. He introduced himself as Lucas and said he was my spiritual guide. I confess that I was a little skeptical at first. You mean, spiritual guide? That didn't exist in my world of science and facts. But something about him made me trust him. Lucas explained to me that I was going through a near-death experience. That my physical body had had a problem. I later discovered it was an ovarian cyst that had burst. But that I was going to be fine. He said I was there to learn some important lessons. Then he started showing me scenes from my life. It was like watching a movie in 3D, I saw moments from my past, things I had already forgotten. I saw it when I was a child and decided I wanted to be a doctor. I saw my college years, my first day in the hospital. But the craziest thing was when he started showing me other lives. I said they were my past lives. In one of them, I was an elderly woman who died of a heart attack. In another, it was an Asian man who didn't survive heart surgery. There was even one where I was a young woman who was poisoned. I was shocked, like reincarnation. That was never part of my beliefs. But there, seeing all that, it was difficult to deny it. And the most interesting thing is that in all these lives, death was linked to the heart in some way. Lucas explained to me that this was no coincidence, that I had chosen to be a cardiologist in this life to work on issues that came from other existences. He said that each life is an opportunity to learn and evolve. It was a lot of information to process. I, who was always so skeptical, was there learning about reincarnation and the purpose of life. It was like my whole world had turned upside down. After showing me my past lives, Lucas said he had something important to show me. Something about the future. I confess that I was a little scared. I mean, seeing the past was crazy enough. Imagine the future. He took me to a place that looked like a cosmic movie theater. In front of me, images began to appear. They were scenes from the future, but not a distant future. It was August 2024. I saw scenes of great changes happening in the world. It seemed that humanity was going through a kind of collective awakening. I saw people coming together, regardless of race, religion, or nationality. It was as if everyone realized that we are all one. But I also saw challenges. I saw climate change causing problems in various parts of the world. I saw incredible technological advances, but also the dangers they brought. It was a mix of hope and worry. Lucas explained to me that August 2024 would be a turning point for humanity, a time when we would have to make important choices that would define our future as a species. He said that many revelations would come to light during this period, things that would change the way we see the world and ourselves. The crazy thing is that he said I had an important role in all of this, that the reason I was having this experience was to prepare myself for what was to come, that I would need to use what I learned there to help people go through these changes. I was a little overwhelmed by all of this. You know, like me, a simple cardiologist from Munich, playing an important role in the future of humanity. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie. But Lucas assured me that I wouldn't be alone, that there would be many other people around the world who were also being prepared for this moment, that it was a collective effort to raise the consciousness of humanity. He showed me more details about what would happen in August 2024, but made me promise not to tell everything. He said some things needed to happen naturally without interference, but he assured me that when the time came, I would know exactly what to do. After showing me these visions of the future, Lucas said he had one more important thing to teach me. Lucas explained to me that this place was a representation of what he called the frequency of universal love. He said that it is the natural state of the universe, but that we on Earth end up disconnecting from it because of our fears and ego. He made me sit on a kind of bench made of light. It's difficult to explain, it was as if it were solid, but at the same time it wasn't, and began to give me a lesson about love. But it wasn't that cliché talk about romantic love, you know. It was something much deeper. Lucas explained to me that love is the most powerful force in the universe, that everything that exists is made of love, including us. But we forget this when we incarnate on Earth. We begin to see love as something separate from us, something that we need to seek outside. He taught me that true love has no conditions. It is not something we give and expect to receive back. It's something that simply is. We love because that is our nature, not because the other deserves it or not. I learned that love is not just a feeling, it is a choice. We can choose to act with love in all situations, even with people we don't like. And the more we do this, the more we reconnect with our true nature. Lucas showed me how love can heal, not just emotionally, but physically too. He explained to me that many illnesses are caused by a lack of self-love or by holding on to hurts and resentments, and that learning to forgive and love yourself is fundamental to health. He taught me techniques to cultivate more love in my life. Simple things, like practicing gratitude every day, meditating, focusing on the heart, treating everyone with kindness. He said that these practices, if done consistently, can completely transform our lives. The most interesting thing is that he said that this knowledge about love would be crucial for what was to come in August 2024. That the changes that the world would undergo would only work if they were based on love. That my role would be to help people understand and practice this unconditional love. I was impressed by all of this. It was a totally new way of seeing love, very different from what I had learned in my life. As a doctor, I have always focused on the physical side of things. But there, in that cosmic garden, I began to understand that the emotional and spiritual are just as important. Lucas made me promise that when I returned, I would practice these love lessons every day, that I would try to see every patient, every coworker, every person on the street as a manifestation of this universal love. It wasn't an easy promise to make, but I knew it was important. After this intense class about love, Lucas told me it was time to go back. I confess that I was a little scared. I had just discovered a whole new world. How was I going to go back to my normal life after that? But Lucas assured me that I wouldn't forget anything I had learned, that these lessons would be engraved in my soul, even if my conscious mind didn't remember everything immediately. He explained to me that the return would be quick, that I would feel like I had been sucked back into my body. I mentally prepared myself for what was to come. Suddenly, I felt that same sensation of falling, only this time upwards. It was as if I had been shot out of a cannon. I whizzed past all those dimensions I had crossed before. The next thing I knew, I was back in my bathroom, but now I was no longer floating. I was back in my body, lying on the cold floor, and boy, did it hurt like hell. I opened my eyes and the bathroom light seemed to be dazzling. I tried to get up, but the pain was too strong. That's when it hit me. The ovarian cyst had really burst. It wasn't just a vision that Lucas had shown me. It was real. I managed to drag myself to my cell phone and call emergency. I explained what had happened, well, the physical part at least, and within a few minutes the ambulance arrived. At the hospital, I underwent a series of tests. The doctors confirmed the diagnosis of a ruptured cyst and said I would need to undergo surgery. I was scared, even though I'm a doctor. Being on the other side, as a patient, I was scary. But then I remembered what I had learned from Lucas, about how love can heal, about how everything happens for a reason. I decided to trust the process. I used the techniques he had taught me to calm myself down before the surgery. The operation was a success. When I woke up from the anesthesia, I felt different. Not just physically, but in every way. It was as if I had been reborn. As if that near-death experience had given me a second chance at life. In the days following the surgery, while I was recovering in the hospital, I had a lot of time to think about everything that had happened. It was hard to believe that in a matter of hours, or was it minutes? To this day, I'm not sure how long my experience lasted. My entire worldview had changed. I, who had always been so skeptical, so attached to science and verifiable facts, now found myself questioning everything I thought I knew. As a doctor, I always believed that death was the end, that when the heart stops beating and the brain stops working, that's it. Game over. But now I knew there was much more. I started to see my patients in a different way. There were no longer just bodies to be treated, but souls on learning journeys. I realized that often, what they really needed was not just medicine or surgery, but understanding, empathy, love. My coworkers noticed the change. Some thought it was the effect of anesthesia or the trauma of surgery. Others were genuinely intrigued by my new perspective. I started talking more openly about the importance of love in healing, about how our emotions affect our physical health. Of course, not everyone understood. There were people who thought I had gone crazy. After all, a respected cardiologist talking about universal love and reincarnation. It wasn't exactly what was expected, but I didn't care. I knew that what I had experienced was real, even if I couldn't prove it scientifically. I started incorporating meditation and mindfulness practices into my daily routine. Before each surgery, I said a small prayer, asking for guidance and protection. It wasn't a religious prayer in the traditional sense. It was more of a connection with that energy of love that I had experienced. I also started preparing for what would come in August 2024. I didn't know exactly what it would be, but I knew it would be important. I started studying more about spirituality, about different cultures and beliefs. I wanted to be ready to help people when the time came. The hardest part was explaining all of this to my family and close friends. They were happy that I had survived, of course, but they didn't understand this drastic change in my personality. I had to be very patient, explain several times, show with actions more than with words that this new Margaret was real and that she had come to stay. In the months following my near-death experience, I faced several challenges. The biggest one was reconciling my new spiritual understanding with my medical career. It was not easy to talk about energy and universal love in an environment so focused on data and procedures. I started doing research on the relationship between spirituality and health. I discovered that there were scientific studies showing how faith and spiritual practices can positively affect patient recovery. This helped me create a bridge between my new self and my medical side. I decided to be more open with my patients about my beliefs. Not that I preached or tried to convert anyone, but when I felt it was appropriate, I shared some of my experience. I was surprised to see how many patients felt comfortable talking about their own spiritual experiences afterward. One day, I had an experience that reinforced everything I had learned. I was treating a patient with serious heart problems. The tests showed nothing abnormal, but he continued to have pain. Following my intuition, I asked if he had any unresolved conflicts in his life. The man started to cry. He told me that he had fought with his son for years and they had never reconciled. I realized that this hurt was literally affecting his heart. I encouraged him to seek forgiveness and reconciliation. A few weeks later, he returned for a follow-up appointment. Not only had he made peace with his son, but his heart symptoms had improved significantly. This experience showed me in practice how the emotional and spiritual affect the physical. It was a confirmation of everything Lucas had taught me. From then on, I started incorporating this kind of more holistic approach into my work whenever possible. Of course, not everything was rosy. I had colleagues who questioned my methods, who thought I had lost scientific objectivity. I was even called in for a conversation with the hospital management about my new approach, but I was determined. I knew that what I was doing was important, not only for my patients, but for my own growth. And little by little, I started seeing results. Patients who recovered faster, who dealt better with difficult diagnoses, who found peace even in complicated situations. All of this made me sure I was on the right path, that near-death experience hadn't been by chance. It was preparation for what was to come, a way to equip myself for the changes that would happen in August 2024. As the days pass and August 2024 approaches, I feel a mixture of anxiety and anticipation rising within me. I don't know exactly what to expect, but I'm sure it will be something big, something that will change the world in some way. I decided that I needed to prepare myself in the best way possible. I'm studying more about different cultures and religions, trying to understand the different ways people find to connect with the divine. I have been learning about meditation, yoga, shamanic practices. Not that I have adopted all of these practices, but I want to have a broader understanding of human spirituality. I am also intensifying my practice of unconditional love. I try to see each person I encounter as a manifestation of that universal love I have experienced. It's not easy, especially with difficult people or in stressful situations, but I try hard every day. Over the last few months, I have been giving talks on the relationship between health and spirituality. At first, it was just for small groups, but little by little I gained more recognition. People have come from far and wide to hear me talk about my experience and how we can integrate the spiritual into healthcare. As my work gains more visibility, I am receiving invitations to participate in international conferences. I've already spoken in London and New York, Tokyo. It's incredible to see how people from different cultures and backgrounds are interested in this more holistic approach to medicine. But not everything is perfect. The more I talk about my experience and my new beliefs, the more criticism I receive. There are people who accuse me of charlatanism, of abandoning science. I receive threats. I have to deal with trolls on social media. It's a difficult period, but I remain firm in my purpose. And now, finally, we are in July 2024. I can feel something is about to happen. It's as if there was an energy in the air, a collective expectation. I started having vivid dreams, which seemed to give me more details about what's to come. Last week, I received an unexpected invitation. It is to participate in a global conference on the future of humanity, which will take place in August in Geneva. The invitation mentions that world leaders, renowned scientists, and people with unique insights into the future will be present. When I read that, I was sure, this is it. It's the moment that Lucas showed me, the moment when everything I learned will be necessary. I accepted the invitation immediately. Now I'm packing my bags for Geneva. I don't know exactly what will happen there, but I know it will be the start of something big, something that will change the world in ways we can't even imagine. And I'm ready to do my part, to share what I've learned about love, healing, and our true nature. Who knew that scary experience in my bathroom 4 years ago would lead me to this? Life is truly full of surprises, and I can't wait to see what next month has in store for us. August 2024 is coming, and with it, the future I was shown. I'm nervous, excited, and, above all, ready to face whatever comes.